Race! It's a race! I'm winning!
Had to put that clip in because it makes me laugh every single time, because Kimi reminds me of a character called Enrico Bellini, who is an Italian tourist who basically is narcoleptic, so he falls asleep and then forgets he's in a race, and then he's like, it's a race, I hope I win. It's amazing. Even when he's like, he walks into this room, he goes, oh my god, what a beautiful room, have you seen this room? And this guy's like, yeah, we're in it. It's the funniest thing. And every time I watch it, I howl. Even when he's like, I know what you're thinking, Enrico is a girl's name. And you could even do that for Kimi. I know what you're thinking, Andrea is a girl's name. Anyway, I am easily amused. I find it very funny. So every time I see him, I just think, it's a race, I'm winning. Are we actually about to witness history being made? So welcome back to the Astrological Pit Stop, which is a podcast and show where we talk about Formula One racing and astrology and spirituality. So today's exciting because it's a video on Mercedes, and I'm a Mercedes supporter. God knows why these days, because I hate the dynamic and the management of it all, but I will continue to be supporting, although I feel like I may be becoming a Ferrari convert. So I am originally a George Russell supporter. George is my guy. I have become a little bit more fond of Kimi in recent months, so I also support him too. So I'm very happy for either of them to win. I feel like I don't want to abandon George. I'm like, no, you're already going through it. You can't lose me of all people. Like, why would you want to? like he cares. But yeah, I feel like I have to be loyal. So with this video, we're going to do some fun things. We're going to look at George's chart. Now, we don't know his rising sign, but I've set him as a noon chart, which is what astrologers do when we don't know the rising sign. It's actually put him at Cancer rising, which is the sign I have been speculating him to be, because look at his eyes. He has the face of a Cancer rising. He also has a lot of Capricorn energy there too, and of course these two are sister signs. I've always said Capricorn or Cancer rising, I can see both, but Cancer, just those big blue baby eyes with the long eyelashes. Yeah, I've done enough astrology in my years to know it's giving Cancer, right? So we've got a noon chart for him. We're going to look at his win in Australia, and also some of his issues, and then sort of predict what we might see for the rest of the season. We're going to look at Kimi Antonelli's wins as well, and we're also going to look at where his chart is going and if we could actually predict him winning the championship based on transits alone. We're also going to look at Destiny Matrix too, because Kimi's going to shift from 21 to 8, and that will impact his energy. So let's begin with the Destiny Matrix, actually. So first off, we have George in between two. So he was in the 17 energy, but he's transitioned from number 6, which is the Lovers. Now, if you add these two up together, because sometimes what we do to get the general energy of the years and the transition, because you don't just wake up one day and suddenly you're in the next energy, you do have to have a little bit of a bridge. It's still the Lovers, it's still number 6. Now, I started as a tarot reader, so I know this quite well. If you have this in reverse, which is where it's in the negative, it means that you're not working with business partners in the right way. Yes, it can be impactful on relationships, but of course we see that's not the issue for him. Quite the opposite. But really that's when you become disillusioned with management and collaboration. So he's not working well with the car. Well, what is Lovers? It's actually ruled by Mercury, it's Gemini, and Mercury rules transport, particularly those finer parts, right? So it's not working well with the car, maybe feeling disillusioned by the management with Toto Wolff, and feeling like it's not my fault, it's the car, and then having your boss saying, well, actually, I think it's your driving style, and then you feeling a bit like, whose side are you on, right? And I guess it's also the confusion of being like, as a team principal, you don't want to admit fault all the time for your car because it does make you look good, and then you have to keep investors on your side. So I understand from that point of view, but it certainly puts a bad taste in people's mouths, that's for sure. And, you know, we had this last year with the speculation, and I said, what is this humiliation ritual in public? You know, I remember being at Silverstone with my friend, and I was like, what's going on here? And he was an Aquarius. He was like, I don't stand for this injustice, right? So, yeah, I think that energy was a little bit dicey. Interestingly, I'm going to put his fiancée Carmen, her Destiny Matrix, they have the same, 6 and 17. So definitely aligned. I think it's really beautiful as well because for Carmen's love line, she has number 22, which is the same as me, actually. I have this too. And that's like the Fool. There's a guy who's very playful. He really makes you laugh. It's normally like someone who's a bit more on the road. So it doesn't actually give me George vibes, but she did say immediately when she went on this blind date with him that he just made her laugh and was really funny. So I think it's a sense of like the Fool, the goofiness. Whereas for him, he's got 19, which is the Sun. So this is very sort of bright and beautiful, very vibrant. I actually had to check if Carmen was a Leo because she's just so beautiful and she really gives Leo energy. She's actually an Aquarius. They were born like within a couple of days with each other. But of course, Aquarius is the sister sign to Leo. So again, it's quite interesting how this all is impacted. Now, one question that I have been asked, and I thought, yeah, it's a good point, is can you see the engagement, George's engagement in the chart? Well, again, we don't have his full chart with the rising sign to know the house because I'm looking at something like the 5th or the 7th, but it is a really nice transit that took place. So he announced it on the 9th of August. Doesn't necessarily mean he actually got engaged on that day, but so I give it a bit of wiggle room for a couple of days. So one thing that I really like is that he's got the transit Venus in Libra, which is what we call domicile, meaning that it's at home. It has strong strategic advantage for love and harmony, and it's conjunct his natal Juno. Juno is what we call a soulmate asteroid. So whenever something like Jupiter, Venus, or the North Node is going over the soulmate asteroid, this is when I'm looking for a partnership that's cemented. Meeting somebody, getting engaged, marriage, starting a family. It's really beautiful. It's basically saying you're my soulmate, and George has already said, I absolutely see my future with her forever. So Venus there is bringing a lot of beautiful energy. The moon was also in Cancer as well, which of course, if it's on his first house, that really adds a bit of pep in the step. Yeah, it's just super beautiful. And the ring, he's such a Capricorn Venus. The ring is beautiful. I love that it's not a standard ring. It's got a bit of yellow tint to it. Almost looked like it was citrine. And it had a little turtle on the inside. It's so cute. It's so lovely. Anyway, this is me being a girl and geeking out, being like, rings, so pretty. So yes, you can see it in the chart. But again, they have got that aligned 6-17 energy together, which I think is really beautiful. So rather than just sort of moving on to the next set, I'm going to talk about Kimi's and then we'll do the full chart reading. So Kimi has gone from 21, the world, which is, also, I'm doing this off the top of my head. This is how good I am. And also, I don't get paid for this, guys. So please drop a like and a comment because I don't get paid for any of this. And like, I do have to take time out of my day for stuff I actually get paid for to do this. Like, not saying like, oh no, but it does take a lot of effort and I have it all imprinted in my brain. Okay, so Kimi's a central 10, the bastard. 10s are so lucky. They're just like, oh, they float through life. Everything's amazing. Oh my God. He's so similar to someone I knew that had very similar placements to him and also a 10. And I'm like, just floating through life, just getting everything you want. It's Wheel of Fortune, so it's very fated, you know, it is when I spin the wheel, see what you get. So you're not always lucky, but you tend to have a certain level of like vibrance to you. Now, with Kimi, he's gone from 21, which is the world. Now, I've said that the world versus the star always wins because the world is victory, it's successful conclusions because it is Saturnian. Now, this means that you are really showing your craft, your discipline. And again, it's got almost Capricorn elements to it. Now, one thing I also note here as well is that he has 21, but he also has 21 in his love line. And I've always said, based on his chart, he prefers the older lady. Foreign, older lady. It's in the chart, right? I know he's dated somebody that was about a year older than him, but I'm talking like quite significantly older, maybe like, could be mid-20s, something like that. Now, one thing also is that he had a nodal return. Now, when you have a nodal return, which is always around 19, this is normally when you have like your first breakup or you have an issue. So he broke up with his partner. And when you have a love line energy with 21, that makes sense. Not because it's a line, so it makes sense. Normally, it's actually when you find a partner. But because it's about conclusions, it's about an ending, it shows an ending of a relationship. He also has Jupiter going over Venus currently, so he has a good chance to find someone else if he wants to, right? Anyway, this is just my point of like, if you're interested to know. Now he's going into number 8. This has a lot of reminiscence to Oscar Piastri last year. And he sort of fell off a cliff, didn't he? I'm not saying he's going to fall off a cliff, but the energy does change. Now, this is fairness and equality, very clear, unbiased. There's a good balance, like past karma is coming back and, you know, being good for you. And you also don't listen to emotional chaos. There's a lot of rational thought here. I had number 8 last year. Actually, it was for 2 years because of the weird bridge of my age. So it was actually for 2 years. And I joined like a law environment. So that was like justice. It was really strange. But yeah, I also had a lot of karmic endings in relationships and whatnot. So the reason why it's very karmic is because the number 8 is Saturnian. So he's going from Saturn to Saturn. This is why I don't think it's going to be as jarring as we think. He's also got Jupiter going over Saturn in the coming months, which I'll talk about. So he's absolutely having to, you know, step into adulthood. One thing about Kimi is, you know, his almost caricature is that of a young boy, you know, like he's known for, he's like a little kid, he's a baby. Oh, he's such a baby. He's not, he's a grown man, right? And yeah, he's got a bit of a baby face. He's quite sweet looking, but he's a man and he's going to be 20 in a week and a bit, right? And 20 is not a boy. You're an adult, right? And I don't need to make a video explaining this. Like, you are just an adult. You have your own house, for God's sake. Who at that age has their own house? Like, you know, you're an adult and should be treated as such, right? It's okay to be like, oh, he's sweet and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, there is a like infantilization that is quite a disruption on your reputation, because the last thing you want is to win a championship because you did well and you're actually good at what you do, and people got, you only got it because you, like, you know, people gave it to you because you're just a kid and they wanted you to be the younger, you know, you kind of just think it's not fair. Now, one thing I think is that this justice energy is going to be in reverse for him, because he has this legal issue going on right now, being sued by like a former manager, Minardi. Whether that will actually come to anything, I don't know. But it certainly sets the stage for a reverse shadow justice. So this is where you have unfair treatment. Now, I can see this already because we can see that George's car it's injustice, right? We know that George is a good driver. Like, that's just objective, I think. And he's not getting the chance to really prove himself. So the last thing you want to do is win a championship and then people go, you only won it because your teammate didn't have a very good car. That would not me. I wouldn't feel good about that. I'd be like, you know, it would keep me up at night a little bit. So unfair treatment, prejudice, a corrupt system that's either working for you or against you, blaming other people, playing the victim, being like, it's not my fault, you know, not my fault. That's a very Virgo thing as well. Not my fault. And it's like, excuse me, yes it is. So refusing to admit your faults, cheating, lying, hiding things. Not saying any of this is going to be the case. I'm just giving you the sort of rundown. Being rigid, not forgiving, or not being compassionate. Now, I think that this may come in different forms. I mean, you can have positive parts of a card and then negative as well. I don't think Kimi's a person that is not compassionate. I mean, he's himself said that he will speak to everybody, even people in catering, because he wants them to know that he values them, which I think is really very lovely. It's a very attractive quality, right? And quite rare in that kind of field where people are very uppity and like, oh, I'm the big shit. And it's like, I think it's quite nice to say, you know, if you make my food, I want to know what your life's like. You know, I think that's really nice. So I think there could be some positive and negative aspects to this. Now, 8 is Saturnian. What is it? It's an infinity loop. It goes round and round and round. Now, there's a whole story about this, which I won't get into because it'll bore you. But basically, 8 was always associated with Saturn until recent times, when this group called the Golden Dawn changed it to be associated with Leo and the strength. That's because they felt it fit the order of tarot more. But 8 has always been a Saturnian number, which is why I hate these Lionsgate portal things of 888 and all the rest of it. I'm like, that's fucking Saturnian. Like, I know, I'm Saturn ruled. Like, why are we doing this, right? Hence the karmic nature of justice. So if we're looking at justice versus the star, this one's going to be very tight battle. That's why I'm saying I wonder if George can really push himself back up now. If he gets the car to be in the right place, we're going to see how good he really is. So let's look at George's chart for Australia, where he actually won, and we all thought, yeah, this is going to be his year. So there's a really nice aspect here, which is Jupiter in Cancer trining his natal Mars in Pisces. Of course, Jupiter bringing luck and abundance, and Mars in Pisces is a bit more slow, more intuitive led, but actually Mars is dealing with mechanical parts, more like engines and braking and whatnot. So that's actually really lovely. And again, if this chart is correct, we've also got the Moon in Scorpio, going over his natal Chiron. And you can also see that Saturn in Aries is quite far away from his natal Saturn. You know, as we got closer to that natal Saturn, we started getting more problems, didn't we? More feelings of hopelessness. And of course, with the star is about hope after a difficult time. If it's in reverse, it's a hopeless feeling. And I've actually already pointed out that me and George are both in 17 energy. I've had a bloody horrific year. I haven't liked it at all. No. So that energy is very much like, give me light at the end of the tunnel. And energies can switch between the year. So it can be that we start to just lock in and say, I'm going to tap into that feeling of hope and faith. And again, everything being perfectly balanced. Aquarius is the water bearer, so everything needs to be balanced. That's why Kimi's justice energy is so apparent now, because of everything being balanced. So when Kimi got his first win and George didn't get the win, it was not necessarily a bad race for him at all, but he did have the moon conjunct Uranus. Now this is that one aspect I've been looking at for multiple charts, Lewis, Kimi, that is just unexpected, all right? It doesn't have to be bad or volatile, but it's like, freaking hell, I wasn't expecting that. You know, it's kind of like, ooh, you just made me realize something. So it's kind of like a shock. And again, the chart doesn't look bad, but it's a feeling of, I was not expecting that. Now I'm really going to have to lock in. So as we get closer to Saturn being conjunct natal Saturn, we see more issues and more restriction, issues with the car, a feeling of public reception not being very good, being like, stop moaning, you know. And we have a similar feeling for Charles Leclerc with the Saturn return, and Max Verstappen, who hasn't had one win this year, right? So it's quite intriguing to see that. And there's been a whole host of issues as well with him. I think more so than any, it's been his reverse nodal return, which is, you know, kind of like really putting pressure on him to achieve a certain level of success. And again, I think everyone thought this was going to be his year. So yeah, quite interesting, isn't it? I actually want to look at the rest of the races. So I actually think he can mount a bit of a comeback here. I can see him fighting and clawing like hell to get up there. So I talked about Lewis Hamilton having some issues with restriction towards the end of the year, but he's also going to be fighting. And they're all in a dogfight here because, of course, there's only around, forgive me if I'm wrong, about 8-9 points between Lewis and George at current. So, you know, those two can really start scrapping with each other for second, whereas we'll see Kimi might be just leave him in the dust. We don't know really. So I think it's interesting to see George mounting a comeback here. We can also see that there's more harmony for him. Yes, we have that Saturn return exactly, but the good thing is that Saturn is now retrograde, meaning it's moving further away from his natal Saturn. So it's almost like easing the restrictive pressure off a little bit, giving him time to breathe. Now, of course, it's a really nice time for him because he just got engaged, so he's going to be in that love bubble, and it's just, you know, always a nice time. But the pressure is going to be mounting for him. Now, Mars is going to be in Cancer. If that's in his first house, it's going to be very sort of like, again, going like a crab sideways, and he's going to have to be really strategic. There's also some elements here that I can see, which is that while Lewis struggles in October, November, while Kimi might struggle in October, November, George has a big opportunity to mount his comeback in October because he will not have that Venus and Mercury retrograde affecting him as much. Yes, it will go over his natal Chiron, but I don't think that's going to be as bad as it going over Kimi's Jupiter or Lewis's Saturn, all right? So for me, I think that George can really make a push in October, and these are the chances for him to do so. He normally does quite well in Singapore, for example. So the Asian GP, him and Charles, I think could be the ones that are slightly better, and other drivers might struggle a bit more. So I know a lot of people will say, well, Abigail, do you think George is going to win? I would love for him to win. And I thought he was going to win, but that Saturn return has been a lot more difficult than we anticipated. And I'm very open to saying, like, I was wrong about my prediction, but we don't know how these things are going to play out until we see it. And again, I don't know that exact house it's in. If I know it's in the 10th house, I would have been like, Jesus, that was really tough for you. I would have said, okay, maybe we need to adjust the prediction, right? I also didn't have Kimi's full chart when we started the predictions either. Now I have it, I can do more with it. So again, it's all about what you learn as you go through, and this is not a standard kind of practice. But unfortunately, I do think that if I look at Abu Dhabi for him, it looks like a disappointment. It feels like you kind of just also missed out a little bit. It's quite similar to the sort of issue we had last year when Lando won. You know, we've got Max Verstappen like 2-3 points behind, and then we've got Oscar Piastri, who was leading the championship, now in third. So it's kind of like them all in a cluster. So it's fun because it's quite a tight race, but I also do think that we're going to see more of a battle for second than we are for first. And George and Lewis are more of a fight for second, with Kimi being more at the forefront. So let's look at Kimi actually. So if we look at Australia, where he did really well, he got a podium. We have the moon in Scorpio, exactly 12 degrees conjunct his natal Jupiter. Really, very lovely. This is a nice start to the season. It feels very harmonious. We've got a nice cluster in Pisces over his natal Uranus, which is like, oh, wasn't expecting that, but that's quite fun. You know, kind of gives you a pep in the step, makes people think, could you be in the race? I've just got my iPad in front of me, so I'm not scrolling. Then we look at his first win, where he's very emotional. So tend to look at some of the emotional aspects here. Well, we got Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Talk about crying your eyes out. Conjunct Mars at 10 degrees, but that everyone has that. So that's not the biggest thing that we're going to notice. What we are going to notice on top of natal Uranus. So that is when you're like, what else happened when he had a big thing going over natal Uranus in Silverstone? We had a little cry, didn't we? So, yes, imagine being able to predict, you're going to cry tomorrow. Imagine being like, you're going to cry tomorrow. And you're like, okay, it's good to know. And then you're like, I did cry. I did have a cry in the toilet. So, yes, it's kind of a sentimental feeling in Pisces as well. It's like, oh, this is beautiful. It was a nice chart. It does look really nice, and you've also got a really nice what you call a grand water trine. You have Jupiter transit in Cancer. It trines his natal Jupiter, goes to natal Uranus, and then up again. So big triangle is what we call a grand water trine, and yeah, it's basically just really emotional and very sentimental. So for Kimi, what I really want to be looking at now, based on what I've been noticing, is things over his natal Uranus. So his next win, Mercury conjunct natal Uranus, right? I really want to be looking at that, not retrograde this time. Moon conjunct natal Mercury, which is what Lewis Hamilton had when he won in Barcelona, but it was reversed instead. So he had Mercury going over natal moon. So what I really want to be looking for with Kimi is what the moon is doing, because I think he's quite an emotional person, which I think can be quite good, intuitive perhaps. But ultimately, I think that he's a very calm driver in his own words. He's quite calm. It's a lot of that Virgo energy. But the moon can trigger emotions if it's in the wrong place, like on top of Uranus. So these are the kinds of aspects we need to be looking for in the next couple of races to see how he's going to be doing. There's a couple of races where I can see his chart is not super harmonious for a win, but he's still won. But these are the races when others have failed. So it's almost like you've won because of other people's mistakes or problems, rather than your own sort of like, skill or talent. So sometimes that's why we have to look back and say, what is going on with someone else's chart? Similar to saying like, oh, is Lewis going to stop the race for George because he hits him, right? And it's kind of like, it's not George's fault as such. It was a problem with the car, and then someone else gets involved. There's always different layers. And of course, we see other people in the birth chart. It's not just a chart for us. So currently he's got Jupiter going over his natal Venus, which is really very lovely. It's a time of great public reputation. If it is indeed in his 10th house, I'm pretty sure this chart is accurate. Now we've got it pinned down, and if you go onto the Astro theme thing, it now says the chart that I've got, because I told them they were wrong. I was like, no, you've got the timing wrong. So Jupiter going over Venus, really beautiful. This is a time of great victory. This is why I'm like, could we see him actually securing the championship in the coming weeks, particularly around the middle of September? I personally think in Madrid, we could really see the push of, okay, we're leaving people in the dust here. It's interesting as well, as I've mentioned, because Jupiter going over Venus is the one big transit I look for someone getting into a long-term relationship. Might not be, I think, you're very focused on the championship. I'm not here to speculate. I'm not a dating channel or anything like that. But it's interesting because it is the kind of transit that I would be looking for. Then we have something very interesting happening, which is we have Jupiter going over his natal Saturn. This is a time when you're having to go into adulthood. You're really having to be disciplined, and people are not going to give you the pat on the back anymore and be like, oh, you're doing really well, kid. It's like, you're not a kid anymore, right? Like, you are definitively leaving this championship. And this is why I was saying Lewis can deal with this a lot more humorously, because he already has Saturn in his first house, and that Saturn element is going to be encroached by Venus and Mercury retrograde. So his wisdom starts to come to the forefront, and that's why I'm saying he's like, oh, listen, kid, you think you know pain, and that's why those two are fine with each other, not in a sort of like personal way, but on the track. Then what I have been saying is this the time we secure the championship and you actually get it like fully, is that Jupiter goes over his natal Mercury. That's normally a time of like, for example, if you just got a degree, you get your certificate, you get your graduation, you're like, oh, I've done it, right? And this is around just a week before Abu Dhabi. So this is what I'm saying. Can we actually see in the chart Kimi winning the championship? Now, I don't want to say this is exactly, and also because people are like, well, I don't want to watch these videos anymore because we already know who's going to win. Well, not necessarily. This is just my prediction. We still don't know what's going to happen. It's quite up in the air. I've already said before that I think McLaren could really be, you know, putting a bit of a knife to the throat. So I do think that it's going to be a mix. I don't think it's going to be, yes, I'm exactly going to run away with it, but the landscape becomes a lot clearer around Madrid, and particularly we've got a bit of we might even have a bit of a 4-horse race actually towards the end of the season. But the fact that we've got Jupiter, which is that planet of abundance, look, but also expansion going over Venus, Saturn and Mercury is quite intriguing. Let's look at the status of that. Venus is a benefic, meaning it brings harmony. Saturn is the opposite. It's a malefic, meaning that it brings problems. I was just saying that, you know, he's on his holiday and we've had 3-4 things come out where it's like, it ain't my business. Like, can we just let people live their lives, please? Like, I don't need to know. Why do we need to know the fine edge of a far? Why do I need to know what you're doing at every hour of the day? We don't need to know it, right? Let people have their privacy. And then Mercury, which is considered to be neutral, although in traditional texts it was somewhat a malefic, it's really just a messenger. So Jupiter expands messages, communication. It can also be in the 10th house, like bizarreness. You know, when someone says something, you're like, that was freaking bizarre. You know, not queer as folk is an English phrase that we say, which is like, why are you just so weird? Like, I don't know if this is like what a journalist says, maybe a fan. You're just like, oh, why have you said that to me? Who do you think I am? Why you said that to me for? So strange messages and communication. And then of course the South Node, which is going to be going over the natal Mercury. So he might feel like he can't say what he really wants to say. I think this is a good time to keep a journal, to speak to somebody personal who can understand you, because this feels like media trained PR. I cannot say what I really want to say. So yeah, there's a vibe and a feeling that we could see a sort of linear path here. And Zandvoort's going to be interesting. I'm going to do predictions for that next week. It looks quite nice for him, I'm not going to lie. It does look pretty harmonious. So I'm like, we might get back to it and think, here we go again. So I think that's going to be quite fascinating. But we do have Mercury and Venus retrograde over his natal Jupiter as well. So that can be a feeling of, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't. I'm not as wise as I thought I was, you know. Not as tough as going over a natal Saturn like Lewis. But the good thing about Lewis is he's done this, you know, it ain't his first rodeo, is it? So he's quite wise, he's quite spiritual. I think he'll adapt to that well. But unfortunately, what we have seen is penalties, restrictions, things out of his control that it might not even be him and how he deals with it. It's more like what other people are doing. Okay, so that was a long video, but I really wanted to break it down. So in my opinion, I really see from an astrological standpoint, Kimi doing much better and perhaps winning the championship, which I didn't expect at the start of the year, but I didn't have his full chart. And I was probably coming from a very biased situation of wanting George to win. Do I think George can mount a comeback? Yes, absolutely. And this is what makes it more fun, to see these two fighting with each other and to have those really cool moments like we had in Canada before George had a problem with his car where we're like, oh my God, they're racing. This is so exciting. So I do think it's going to be interesting to see that. Again, it's going to be more of a fight for second between George, Lewis, Charles getting in the mix as well. We've got McLaren. It's going to be very interesting. I know I'm being quite vague here, but it does look to be quite chaotic. And again, we've got Kimi changing energy from 21 the world to Saturnian justice number 8. So I definitely think George needs to lock in. One thing I saw recently was Kimi saying that once he's in that car, there is no mercy. It's very Kreese from Cobra Kai. Like, pain doesn't exist in this dojo, does it? No mercy, right? I love it. It kind of gives a feeling of, well, like, a man can't stand, he can't fight, get the car up. So George needs to lock in. He really needs to go to, yeah, okay, so as soon as we're in the car, there's no mercy. And really do it that way. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to watch. I'm like, oh my God, you know, this is like, oh, I mean, it's tough when you support both drivers. I feel like Elena out of Vampire Diaries. I'm like, which one do I pick? But ultimately, I think it's going to be very fascinating. And yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. Is one of these drivers that you support? And what do you think the landscape's going to be? Do you think my prediction of Lewis still maintaining P2 is going to be correct? Or do you think maybe George can mount the comeback? Let's see. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.